Welcome to Parawomenradio. I'm Amy. Tonight on the Highly Strange Daze podcast on the Parawomenradio network. Oh, DeeDee, oh, DeeDee Blanchard, how did you manage to work your voodoo magic so well on poor Gypsy Dew? According to Gypsy Rose's prison confessions, her mother, while still alive, supposedly placed a voodoo curse on her, ensuring she'll never find love again. Tonight, we'll be delving into the wild accusation and exploring the concept of being cursed by a voodoo. So hold on to your hair and fingernail clippings, folks, because we're delving into the bizarre world of the cursed world of Gypsy Dew. While we wait for everyone to roll in, I'm going to roll some credits. Special shout out to my replay crew and my dragonflies. How was your weekend, my lovelies?
Be sure to give this live a thumbs up. Helps me go out into the algorithm party out there. Bring more people back to the party. It's just a free way to help me out.
It is the Highly Strange Daze podcast. So I've got my beautiful co-host Shannon with me. Hi, Shannon.
Hi, Amy. Hi, everyone. It's so good to be here. Oh, I'm so excited to be here. I had a fantastic day learning all about the Gypsy Rose case situation.
Yeah.
I
situation.
I had seen I didn't ever watch it, but I'd seen the movie The Act advertised on Hulu. And so I was like, oh, that's what this is. Okay. And so I just I fell down the rabbit hole. It was really fun.
It was fun. Wow.
Well, interesting, I guess. Well, I have fun learning.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess it's fun at first, and then I'm pissed off. I'm just at a pissed off stage with it, where I just think it's so like, why does she keep getting all this money? And I struggle.
You mean the mom? Why did she keep getting that?
Oh no, I'm talking about Gypsy. Why does Gypsy keep earning all this cash, this money over and over again, and we're all struggling out here?
Oh, I never thought about that. Yeah, that does pretty much suck because I'm really struggling.
I am so struggling right now. I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm at a point where I've worked so hard at this channel for I've worked. And if I don't start making some money, I'm not going to make it.
Oh, dear.
I'm behind on my rent, like the interest that I've owed on it. I've paid my rent each month, but the interest that I couldn't afford some money, and it's just getting bigger and bigger. And if I don't pay it on Monday, I'm getting my eviction notice. And in Florida, evictions go fast. And it's all I can think about. And it's causing me such stress and pain.
I have been struggling fighting with my disability company through work because I'm disabled. And they told me no more short-term disability, you have to be long-term. But they've taken almost 2 months and they still haven't approved it. And so, yeah, I too am behind on my rent. And my power was shut off this past week, and thankfully my mom turned it back on, and my water was shut off, and my aunt turned that back on. So I'm right there with you. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's insane. And
I go to court on Tuesday. But
on Tuesday you do?
Yep. But luckily, I used to work for a district court back in Hillsdale County where we met. And when I worked there, well, things a lot different now. There's a lady at the court that the court where I am now. She told me that ever since COVID, they've gotten more lenient in for evictions, and so they give you a couple hearings to come up with all the money. And then she is actually, her position is just to help people find money to pay their rent. And she works for the court.
Florida is a lot different than Michigan, and
Yeah.
on top of it all, oh God, she like, I wasn't able to sign my lease, and I told her like a month ago, the friend, I was like, I need to sign my lease, and they won't let me sign my lease until I pay it all, and so now I don't even freaking have a lease, so I am like on the verge of panic, because when it all happened with my mom and I was homeless, I had a vehicle to sleep in, and I don't even have that. So
oh my God.
I need a miracle. I need a miracle, but I've got to keep on doing what I'm doing, because I can't I got to keep going, because people are like, well, why don't you take off? Well, this is what I'm doing to earn money now. I can't take off. So I'm just hoping something comes through today and tomorrow, or tomorrow. I don't know. Anyway, so I'm sorry I was late. My stomach is really upset because I'm nervous. Gypsy Rose. Did you watch the prison confessions of
Yes.
Gypsy Rose? Okay.
I mean, I haven't seen all of them. I've only seen the first 3.
Oh, did you see the part where she talked about her mom putting the voodoo curse? I don't know which segment. Okay. So we're gonna I'm gonna share, we're gonna watch a little bit. I've got some clips, and then we're going to discuss.
Okay.
She printed out a picture of Dan, and she printed out a picture of me, and she went to the store and got a mason jar and a cow tongue. She put the cow tongue in the mason jar with the 2 pictures and a little bit of my menstrual blood. Put it in a mason jar, buried it in the backyard, and said that you will never find love. You will never be happy. So I think that it's true.
Hey, how are you?
In their backyard. Gypsy's
engaged in 2019. I was still such a young girl. I had so much to learn about relationships. And he left me. So it's like I always bring it back to that curse where I'm like, I believe it's true.
Gypsy revealed that after her first attempt of running away, her mother told her that she would never find love and that she would never be happy. DeeDee even went as far as putting a voodoo hex on Gypsy. She put a picture of Gypsy and a picture of the guy she ran away with, a cow tongue and Gypsy's menstrual blood into a jar, and buried it in their backyard. Gypsy says she feels like this has been something that's followed her throughout her life with different relationships, and that it's true. She will never find true love, because
so DeeDee was putting spells on Gypsy. That's wild, but it's not so far out of the bounds of what I would think. DeeDee had this wizard that was tattooed on her leg. It was on her ankle, and she would play with magic, you know. When I was a kid, I seen DeeDee playing with the Ouija board and spells and playing people over to get what she wanted, maybe mind control, and controlling these doctors and controlling this whole world around her like a puppeteer. It was probably very satisfying to her.
It's almost a scene out of Carrie. Now, DeeDee is threatening her daughter and acting in a bizarre, wicked fashion. And certainly Gypsy could be haunted by these seeming like spells for years.
At this point, there was a significant part of our relationship that I believe broke. I'm like, well, I could just wait till she passes away naturally, but I didn't know how long that was going to be. And she could have lived to be 70 years old, and by that time I would be too old to do the things that I would want, like have children and have a life of my own. So I really started to weigh out the pros and the cons and realizing that I needed to get out of this situation now.
So if we even believe that the mom put this voodoo curse on her, and doing the research for this, I was thinking nothing Gypsy says is true. So how do we even know? Dan Glidewell, the person that the mother supposedly put this curse on, wanted nothing to do with her. And Becca Scoop tells us this. And we're just going to watch a little portion of Becca Scoops as she tells us all about Dan and Gypsy.
For Gypsy, they found her in this hotel room, quote, getting ready to be intimate, end quote. DeeDee was so mortified and utterly embarrassed by her behavior, she made Gypsy apologize to everyone who had been searching for her. A few weeks later, Gypsy showed up without her wheelchair at a neighbor's door, begging them to give her a ride to Mercy Hospital, where Gypsy claimed her boyfriend, Dan Glidewell, was a patient who had gotten badly beaten up. It wasn't until after DeeDee's death did the neighbors see Gypsy on the local news and realized she was the strange girl in the wig that showed up on their doorstep. This is the infamous event where Gypsy goes back to Dan Glidewell's place and DeeDee shows up. According to Dan's roommate, he wasn't really into Gypsy. In fact, Dan was literally shocked Gypsy showed up at the hospital. Gypsy insisted on accompanying Dan back to his place, attempting to insert herself into his life. DeeDee shows up and Gypsy screams and yells at her. DeeDee screams and yells. However, Gypsy returns home with her mom. When Dan, who was married, made it clear he would not be taking Gypsy to live with him in Arkansas, she became enraged, later telling her close friend and neighbor, Aaliyah Woodmansey, quote, "Can I tell you a secret? Back in 2011, I ran away from home. I met a pedophile online. He took me back to his friend's house and made me sleep in his bed. But when he got handsy, I freaked out," end quote. When DeeDee had confronted Dan at his house, she called him a pedophile, lying about Gypsy's age, saying she was only 15 years old. Gypsy was actually 19 at the time. It appears Gypsy adopted this lie after Dan refused to become her knight in shining armor.
And so that is probably the true story of what happened with Dan. Well, no, it is the true story. Becca Scoops is amazing, and it is the true story. It wasn't, I don't believe it was a voodoo curse, but we're going to get into some voodoo curses tonight, and we're going to talk about it. What do you think, Shannon?
About the voodoo curse or about the true story?
About the voodoo curse and if DeeDee did it.
Oh, I don't think she did. I think DeeDee was a pro at convincing people of things, and I don't think it was an actual voodoo curse, or if it even was an actual voodoo curse, if it did anything,
I think she just did it to try to scare Gypsy, if she did it.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and she probably did it when she was I don't know. You thought that was a chicken?
Yeah, that's not a black chicken.
No, that's a wizard with a pentagram. And to me, you would have a chicken if you were doing voodoo or something. But would you have a wizard? Like you would have some kind of high priestess or something. Wouldn't you have something if you were a female doing voodoo? I don't know.
Oh, Well, there is the pentagram. So, typically people that don't want to be affiliated with witchcraft or something like that, they wouldn't have a pentagram on their body because, who want, if,
Yeah.
it's kind of a stigma maybe in some places. Anyhow, so she might have been affiliated with magic and witchcraft or voodoo, and it might have been some sort of spell if it even happened. It could be something that Gypsy is just telling everyone to continue to feel sorry for her and give her money.
Yeah, and I think they think that if people, Gypsy went away and was gone for a period of time, and when she came out, the world definitely changed because people aren't so freaked out about what they always used to be freaked out about. Like, it's gotten a little bit better, I've noticed, for people, because there's just so many walks of life out there. And I think they put it out there like we were all going to be like, oh, a voodoo curse. No, not that. Like throwing your hand over the child in the car, so they don't fall forward. A voodoo curse. No. the mom seatbelt. No, in the 70s.
Right. Whereas, now people, voodoo has just, it's more accepted in culture. And I read novels, and voodoo's always popping up in novels, and not in a bad way. I don't know. I agree. I agree with you in that she probably wasn't aware that it's not a bad thing, and maybe people aren't going to feel sorry for her.
Yeah. So back in the early 2000s, Shannon and I were doing Parawomenradio, and we interviewed a woman from Divine Dolls, and she was a voodoo hoodoo priestess.
I remember that.
You do remember it? Okay, so we've got a little bit of her on, and I thought we would listen a little bit to what it is to even be a voodoo hoodoo priestess, to see if we even think that DeeDee was even doing this stuff, because it was New Orleans, and I know that is very pop. Witchcraft and voodoo hoodoo is very well known around that area.
Right. But by that point, weren't they in Missouri?
Well, yeah, but DeeDee probably picked up her voodoo hoodoo in New Orleans.
Oh, yeah.
I'm saying.
Okay.
She was raised in it. So raised in the voodoo hoodoo grifting sector, if there's such a thing.
Right.
And we get love. So be sure to rank us, and we really appreciate those that do that. Tonight for our first guest, we have Yvette Parrish, and she's known as Lorena. She's a mambo of voodoo tradition. She's an intuitive counselor and has been creating dolls locally in Texas, and recently decided to offer them to the world. These divine dolls have been a MySpace hit, popular with entertainers, artists, magicians, and folk art collectors. So I see Yvette is on the line. So let me get the switchboard up and bring her on.
Hello, ladies.
Hi, Yvette. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing great. I enjoyed y'all chit-chatting like that. I wanted to chime in.
As a little side note on this night, I was dealing with my migraines, and they had put me on a medication that made me feel like I was truly coming unglued. And so I'm really off on this night. This was the night that we interviewed Alexandria Holzer, which was Hans Holzer's daughter.
I just remembered the Divine Dolls.
You don't remember Alexandra Holzer?
No.
She was, she's the daughter of Hans Holzer, who wrote all those paranormal books in the 50s and 60s. And he did a lot of work with Lorraine and Ed Warren.
Oh, okay.
That circuit of people. Yeah. It was his daughter.
so glad to have you because, that's what we always say that, these 2 hours are about is just girlfriends chatting about the paranormal. So.
Very cool. Yeah, I very much appreciate y'all inviting me, and hopefully I can answer the questions. And I know there's a lot of mysticism and taboo about the subject and the religion of voodoo, so I'm really glad to be able to be on and talk about it. And it's not a scary thing, I'm a regular woman, married with kids, and I'm not, drinking any blood outside or, naked in the moonlight.
Chicken blood involved? You're not drinking any chicken blood?
No, just chicken feet. I have some chicken feet.
Yeah.
I saw the chicken feet.
Yeah, when they came in, it took me about 10 minutes till I could really touch them because they were just really wild looking, and then I was able to, and of course, decorate them, and then I was, chasing the kids around with them, and we had a good time.
They're pretty creepy looking, though. They are.
They wait. When I saw them, they first came in really raw looking. The feathers really tend to make them look prettier than what they were when I got them, And
what are they for?
They're actually very traditional protection talismans in hoodoo and in voodoo. A lot of people, kind of like a rabbit's foot is good luck. Maybe not for the rabbit, per se, but the chicken feet are really kind of an old magical folklore of protection to hang above your door. And lots of voodoo mambos and hoodoos and witches like them. And they're fun, and I've got one above my door as well, but it's got pink feathers and pearls on it, and I painted little nails. The things we do.
Great. That's great.
How are you with your medication, Amy?
Oh, it's making me stupid.
Are you really?
So I'm gonna fast forward. We don't need to know about my medications.
Few are chosen, and I really think that I was chosen. And it's sort of, I really can't even, so many people have asked me that, how did you come about, being a voodooist or a mambo? And it sort of just evolved, and it wasn't no premonition, this vision, a dream that came to me, you must be. It wasn't like that. It was so evolved so slowly. And as I studied about many religions, including Buddhism and from Ifa to Santeria to, I just was studying so many different religions, Hinduism and different goddesses and gods and all the different religions, and studying what happens when you die in different religions. And I really was just doing a lot of research, and it always went back to voodoo. It always went back there. And maybe it's my Catholic roots, or I spent so much time in church that it was just natural for me. And I think in Texas, there's more Santeria folks than there are voodoo. I think I'm probably one of the very few in my city who is sort of out of the closet, so to speak, about the religion. If there are, I don't.
And I did do a search for her, and I can't find her anywhere. Divine Dolls, Texas, Yvette. I can't remember her last name, though. Did I say her name when I welcomed her on?
I'm sure you probably did.
I probably did. I can't find, she must not be in business anymore, but it would have been interesting if she were.
And if any are listening in my city, you can contact me. I'd love to meet them. But
it's funny because when you think of voodoo, at least when I think of voodoo, the old sense, I think of New Orleans. New Orleans, or however you want to say it.
Correct.
And that sort of, it seems to be, that's where your focus is. You don't think of someone in Texas or Michigan or what have you being a voodoo, or what have you. Is that where it evolved more or less, or is that just all Hollywoodized?
No, I think a lot of the voodooists, a large collection of the folks who practice it probably are in New Orleans and in Louisiana, and they dabble a little bit with hoodoo, which is a little bit more just the magic part of voodoo and not the religion, where, they are doing voodoo magic, but they're not spending any time in church, perhaps. Mm-hmm. So it's a little bit more magical opposed to religious. We do the same magic, but it's kind of a combination. You have to go to church, and you have to pray, and you have to have your proper respects to your ancestors and have respectable altars, and in addition to doing the magic. If you do only one or the other, you can get in trouble. And I think sometimes, people who just do hoodoo are just doing the magic, and you have to, have the base. I think you have to be very much well-rounded, and but I do agree that many people who practice voodoo are in New Orleans and Louisiana, and but it's a little bit slightly different than what I do. I'm a little bit more traditional voodoo, opposed to just voodoo.
Texas really isn't that far from New Orleans.
It really isn't, and I've gone to New Orleans many times and picked up supplies, and that's how I learned how to create the dolls in the first place. I met a wonderful priestess in New Orleans, and I wanted to make a doll. I wanted to do some magic on my soon-to-be husband. And so I met this priestess, and I just love him so much, when you're in love, and what can I do so he'll love me forever, And this was about 11 years ago, and she taught me how to make a doll and how to make it work and how to consecrate it and baptize it and give it a name and how to do that. And I learned how to create the doll, but the doll itself was not attractive, okay? It was a traditional, like kind of a scary skull face, It wasn't the prettiest doll. I like to say my dolls are a little bit more glamorous, and so I remember asking the priestess, I said, does it have to look like this? I mean, it's supposed to be a love doll, but it's scaring the love right out of me, And she said, no. She said, I'm just not artistic. She goes, I'm a magic woman. I'm just not an artist. And when she said that, I was like, oh, so the outside could look any way I want it to be. It's like bells went off. I was like, oh, I want a pretty doll. And that's how I started, playing with the different designs and fabrics and different ways to create the doll that would have the same magical power, but pleasing to the eye, And when people think voodoo dolls, they're thinking pins and needles and this skull face with this straw sticking out of it, and in many of the case, the tourists, that's what they get, But I like to say my dolls are very modern, and they're effective and beautiful, We don't have to be scared, to be, so blessed it's scaring us, the doll, So I make a point to really concentrate on each collection and what's the theme. I make sure I have a theme and a color scheme and the time of year, and I really put a lot of thought into each collection. And if you look on my MySpace page, you'll see many different, from a New Orleans collection, a love collection, a Getty, an ancestor, skeleton collection. I really try to separate them and make it seasonal, and I have so much fun. I mean, I get to play with dolls all day and get to do magic, and I got a great deal.
I want to visit you and do that. That would be a lot of fun.
I have so much fun. I got some students that I teach, and when I look at my schedule, I look really busy, but I really juggle the time really well, and I have students on a certain day a week, and I make dolls on a certain day a week, and I ship them a certain day, and I've got it all organized like a little teacher, and try to keep everything organized so the family's happy, and my business stays thriving, and my magic.
What does your family think about it all?
Let's see, like who?
The kids, the husband, what do they say?
I would say the kids, I have 3 kids, and the oldest and the youngest are very receptive and open, and my little girl, she already knows who Imaya is and knows who my altars are for, and when she finds a seashell, she'll say, this is for Imaya, and she'll bring it to my altar, and she's really sweet. And my oldest, he's very, I think he's probably closer to being a pagan, and he loves, to study about the occult and different magic, and he likes Reiki and healing and everything, and so he's very in tune. And my middle child is like his daddy, thinks it's all crazy, and what the heck?
I've got one like that too.
Yeah, he's like, what the heck? He goes, that's just a skull, and I go, it's not a real skull, and he's always giving me, a little trouble and teasing me, and the chicken feet. So when they came in, my son, the middle one, said, I'm trying to eat here, the chicken feet all hanging, and oh my goodness, my altar room is really is really colorful and really full of all my objects, and I hung all the chicken feet for 3 days to bless them. So every time they'd walk into the altar room, my middle son would say some smart aleck comment, and those are the ugliest things I ever saw, and things an 8-year-old would say, and I'm like, well, then don't go in my room, So I would say my 8-year-old and my husband are very similar. I just think they just kind of stay away from it. But my youngest and my oldest, they're very receptive and respectful and acknowledge it, and so it's kind of an unusual situation with my husband being a Christian, and then my son a pagan, and then my 2 youngest trying to decide where they are, and so we're quite a collection of religious faiths in this house.
So you can see that she is a very normal woman. Her husband was Christian. I think that Gypsy Rose wants us to be shocked, but it's just not shocking.
Right. I agree.
So when I was researching the whole voodoo, hoodoo, I thought it was really interesting because I came on quite a few things about, the roots of it. But a lot of sites pointed out that Christianity actually was the one that made the voodoo hoodoo so like scary, like they demonized it when it was just another religion.
Well, does that surprise you?
No, it doesn't surprise me at all, but I'm just saying it.
Yeah.
I'm just putting it out there. I'm just rolling it out into the carpet.
I believe it. I completely believe that.
So I thought it was, I couldn't find any photos of that, and I couldn't find the dolls. I really didn't look that hard, to be honest with you.
There's just really not so much that sets us apart.
Yeah. Well, I think whatever gets you to the higher power, that gets you to the higher realms, I'm good with. And I think that whatever is the higher power, that's the creation of it all, created all of these things to get us to that higher level. And with the Christianity, this is my belief, this is my opinion, but I feel like all the kings, they kind of mess with it and muddied the waters, and it just all the male were do you know what I mean? Do you know what I'm trying to say? Yeah.
Oh yeah, politics has played a great big part in what Christianity has become today. Absolutely.
Yeah. She said that DeeDee did this to her over a man named Dan, and her mother had chained her to a bed for 2 weeks as punishment. And then she printed out a picture of Dan, and she printed out a picture of Gypsy, and she went to the store and got a mason jar and a cow tongue. She put the cow tongue in the mason jar with 2 pictures and a little bit of her menstrual blood. She buried it in the backyard and said, "You will never find love. You will never be happy." So I think it's true. I just think it's true because every time I get close to someone, they leave me.
She doesn't think that it could be because she didn't learn how to socialize, and maybe doesn't know how to form relationships properly.
Yeah, that she's a liar. I've looked around on the Reddit forums to see if there was any discussion. Like, because people have gone out to that house over and over and over again, Gypsy's home. And like, did they dig up the mason jar? Did anyone find the mason jar? I can't find any answers to it. Seems like it would be that simple. Go look for the mason jar, because if she buried it in the backyard.
Yeah, it should be there. It'd be interesting to know if beef tongue actually is something typically used, you know, in voodoo. Like I know chicken stuff is used. Well, like what we heard today, you know, about the feed and the blood. Well, chicken blood maybe. But beef is beef something that they use?
No. Well, let me look. There's a powerful cow tongue spell for manifesting your desires. If I do a Google.
Okay.
This is what I come up with. I can't go to this LA Times because it's I would have to subscribe, but a bloody cow painted tongue found outside the entrance to a welfare office represented a Santeria or voodoo ritual. So,
okay.
But burying it in a mason jar in the backyard?
Yeah, I don't know.
And like a beef tongue shut up hoodoo spell. So it seems like it would be more like of a shut up spell, not a love spell.
Right. Yeah, I would agree with that. Have you ever eaten beef tongue?
No, I just no. Have you?
Yes. Oh yeah, I had it in tacos once. The texture is kind of tonguey, but it was tasty. It had a good flavor to it. I mean, it just tastes like beef.
Yeah, I just can't. I just can't eat weird stuff because it does weird stuff in my stomach.
Oh, that's understandable.
My stomach or something. I always think of that Mad About You episode where they went to that game place and they ate all the weird food, and that night they dreamed weird dreams. And
I don't see it. I really don't see it. And I don't see, even if it did happen, okay, I don't see it working.
Well, not to mention, I mean, Becca Scoop tells us that Dan called it off with her before that spell even happened. He was like, no, I want nothing to do with you. Stop. Leave me alone.
Yeah. I don't. I think that she's making it up.
I do too.
Angel flew down to a tiny house on the edge of hell. Ain't no garage or a swimming pool, just a sad old friend who thinks he's cool.